Hey guys, I am Aditya Yadav and you're listening to The Sound Report. So it's been a year and then some since we launched the last episode. The podcast has been on a rather long hiatus and I'm honest to God glad to be back behind the wheel again. I'm also glad to tell you that today's conversation marks the first episode of season 2 of the Sound Report podcast. And our topic of discussion is rather fresh as well. But before we inaugurate the new season, I'd like to take a minute to introduce my co host for the session, a dear friend and a fellow sound designer, Karthik Kulkarni. Hi, Karthik.
Hey Adi, glad to be a part of this.
So, Karthik and I have been working in the business since the better part of a decade, ever since we graduated together from Vancouver Film School. And we've worked both as individuals and collaborators in different capacities on films, shows, and commercials. That being said, let's roll the intro. Alright, guys, so in this episode, we talk about Paatal Lok, an Amazon original web series produced by Anushka Sharma's Clean Slate Films, whose release earlier this year left a rather searing impression on the minds of Indian audiences and simultaneously garnered universal acclaim from critics and viewers alike. Paatal Lok is an exemplary feat, a slow burn cop drama on the surface with a rather jarring and well founded socio political undertone. But what enables it to withdraw itself from other stories of its ilk is its courage to ask questions about existentialism and the price we pay for playing cogs in the system, slaving away to keep a country as diverse and multicultural as India well oiled. That being said, what also serves as the show's hallmark, in our opinion, is its sound design. So here we are, probing deep into the work that went behind crafting the show's soundscape. And it is my sincere honor to present the show's sound designer and production sound mixer Vinit D'Souza and the re-recording mixer Boloy Kumar Doloi. Vinit's other work include films like Super 30, Masaan and NH10 and shows like Sacred Games. While Boloy's portfolio include films like Dangal, Stree, Thakre, Article 15 and shows like Leila and Ghoul, just to name a few. Holding a slew of more impressive titles under their belt, both Vinit and Boloy have come to make their mark as formidable artists and technicians in Bollywood. Well, over to you guys now.
Hi guys, I am Boloy. I am the re-recording mixer on Paatal Lok.
Vinit, like Aditya told you, design Paatal Lok or whatever I could design of it at least.
So let's just jump right in. Can you begin with how it all started? I know Vinit was a part of Paatal Lok from the beginning since he was also the production sound mixer on it. Can you shed some light on how you stepped into it, from script to screen basically? Since you already had a working relation with Avinash, who's also one of the directors and the DP on the show.
I don't like not having a script in hand. I had the script before we shot. Actually, Avinash is a very close friend. We shot like immense number of days, almost like 3 feature films and this web series. So we've at least done some 500 days of shoot together.
Mhm.
So before this, it was 3 films. We did Masaan, Drishyam, and while another one was happening called Tryst with Destiny,
Mhm.
this project came by him. And Jaideep was also on it. So he and Jaideep were having their discussions, and I was like, yeah, whatever, let's see, happens. Because I really, again, this whole web series zone, it's a very, I mean, yeah, it looks rosy. I don't know. And from the outside, it's not exactly like feature films in the sense the quantum of work
Mhm.
versus the kind of remuneration that you get. It is at par, but it's just what I feel is it's like 3 times the work because you're actually ending up producing at least 6-7 hours of footage
That's right.
of, I mean, 6-7 hours of content,
Right.
which is, at least, I mean, 4.5 hours is like 3 features if you're counting an hour and a half a feature. And normally, if a feature took you a month and a half, 3 would take you at least
Hmm.
4.5 months, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And at least 4.5 times the money.
Yeah.
But the money is not 4.5 times. Neither is the time you get. You get like double the time, and you got to produce triple, the output.
Correct.
So I mean, the whole energy dynamics kind of changes, which is not what I particularly enjoy because I've also done Sacred Games, but Sacred Games also, I adjusted the shoots. So the thing is, you're shooting like 5-6 scenes a day, which is heavy on the actors, heavy on everybody. And on a film set, you normally do 3 or 4. That too, if it's like a busy film set. You and I both know there are film sets which sometimes shoot one shot a day. So that being said, I knew the producers through because I had done NH10 with Anushka, and Karnesh was also there on board then. So we had an equation since then, and so that means I got pulled on for shoot initially, but then during the course of shoot, our showrunners figured out, "Okay, nahin, Sudha, you only do the design." Long and short, then post also came into my lap, and my look at a script is always, even if I'm doing only shoot, it's not only shoot. Automatically I think design. Ki bhai, if this auto is there, or this scooter is there, or this machine is there, or this motor is there, you might need it in post. Let me record it independently, or let's keep it off on close shots where we can't see. So you think like that, which is what also then ends up helping people who work on the tracks that I do.
And you, Boloy, at what stage did you come in?
We were in touch almost 3 months before we started mixing.
So basically around the time the dialogue edit started.
Yeah.
The dialogue edit is usually the first part of the process. But what's also nice to do, working on a particular script, like this one was about Delhi, and you approach it a particular way on set itself. So there is stuff to bank and name, and because we've done recordings on shoot, so it's always, I feel it's good, you already start absorbing yourself into what you've done and bank it out and sort it out, so that when you need it, you get that crazy biker or that mad wind or that mad bird or whatever.
Right.
So you at least start banking your stuff depending on the edit, because the edit's also going to change for sure. I prefer working on a more locked cut, which is what we did. And then somewhere about then, once you have the lock cut, is when, unless production needs cleaned up dialogue, and it's always a process. I mean, it depends on situation to situation. If they need cleaned up dialogue, then we start off right away, depending on when it's needed. If not, here we sent a cut back then, and then it came back post one round of feedback, which is when we started the dialogue and the effects for it.
So did you have any sessions that you sent Boloy initially, just so that he was also in the loop on how the show's soundtrack was shaping up before he actually got started?
That usually is the plan. Even on a feature, if you're doing a feature, you'd like your re-recording mixer to at least take a look at a reel or something, to look at where and what we're dealing with. So even when we spoke, the plan was to come take a look at an episode and see what I'm talking about.
Right.
Similarly, for him to say yes and get into a project, if it then involves fucking lightsabers and whatnot in the universe, and he's going to have to spend, he also has to gauge how much time he's putting in, if it's worth or not, or if he can deliver the promised in the given time, energy and money. So then it's not right to shove somebody down an alley without telling them what it's about, right? So that usually is the process. Yes, I think Boloy had come over to watch an episode, right?
Maybe. I don't remember now.
Same
because
here.
Boloy is a busy man doing multiple projects at the same time.
Actually, I had a question for you, Boloy.
Yeah.
What drives your decision to say yes to a project of this nature and a long timeline?
See, generally what happens is, like, once like for me, what happens, because I get involved in the last leg of the whole process. So I generally go and watch the film or the like web series, like 1 or 2 episodes, whatever they have logged. If the film, the first half is logged or something is logged, I just go and watch and have a general opinion or have a general idea about how it is gonna be. It's always been working with the people more important, which you like to work with, than projects. So, and when you like the people whom you're working with, and you like kind of gel with them, and it comes across well. It's all about the team effort.
So being a production sound mixer myself, whenever an inquiry for a new project comes my way, I usually hold my breath till I'm told what the shoot locations are. And for you, Vinit, it was Delhi, which is rich with noise. Can you talk a little bit about how you prepared for the shoot in such a challenging place, and talk a little bit about the location scouting as well? Also, having worked with Avinash in the past, how did that factor in? Did you ever run into a situation where you had to change a location because it didn't work well for sound?
Not on this project. My heart has stopped stopping. considering we are from India,
Yeah.
Right.
with the little 2-4 films that I've done here and there, What I figured is, yeah, it doesn't make sense stopping your heart because yeah, dude. I mean, you can prepare for the worst and nothing will happen, and you can prepare for nothing and the worst will happen. For example, you'll be wrecking and you'll end up saying, yeah, everything is sorted, Mud Island, very good, and you go to shoot and turns out the crows are mating.
Right.
So they decide to have a good caw and you can't shoot. I did do a recce, although now again with the current scenario of things, it's not very feasible all the time to listen to your sound guy in terms of where you can shoot and not. You're more figuring out, okay, boss, you gotta shoot XYZ within 60 days schedule. This location is open this day, that date. So that's what I tell my producers also. Okay, all my usual conversation. Fuck sound is a given, but I'm still gonna not let go
Yeah.
and not let you be for a single shot. Like तू बोलेगा कि सुधा MOS है ना, मैं कहा नहीं, मेरे को सांस रिकॉर्ड करने का है, या तो कुछ नहीं तो मेरे को उस टाइम में मेरा रूम टोन निकल रहा है ना उधर का.
Right.
So it's always, I mean, every shot is a fight. What I've basically learned is no matter what, don't let go. Put your boom in there, mic your actors. बाद में देखेंगे. कुछ ना हुआ तो we'll dub. But let's try at least. Don't stop trying. The day you stop trying is possibly the day you start dying. So that means, yeah. So, and Avinash is not just, matlab, he's not just director DOP, but even sound wise, it's amazing, man. Like picture and sound, and these are technical terms you put things into. We are basically, all of us are human sensors, and we have senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. So Avinash is a fantastic sensor, and he's great fun to be with. So he's very aware, he's very sensitive, and he's like a kalakar. Noisy neighborhoods even disturb him. Like when we're shooting at the bus stand, the whole bus stand is going crazy, and we had to dub that scene. And he was just getting irritated कि यार ये कितना शोर हो रहा है bro. मैंने कहा हाँ bro ये ऐसे ही रहेगा, but sorry, this is how it is. We'll try to control it. Let's do what we can. I mean, that scene, I think we ended up dubbing in Jadip such genius, but that
Yes,
you
yes.
don't really know it. But yeah, so Avinash is great fun to work with. So before anything, I mean, sound के लिए cutter नहीं चाहिए, हटाओ साला, नहीं चाहिए, निकालो. Light नहीं लगाएगा light, छोड़ चल. So he's like supportive is not a word. That's how it's been fun working with Avinash, and recce's and everything सब मोमाया है. हाँ जाने का, देखने का कि क्या है, क्या नहीं है, क्या हो सकता है. और जब एक्चुअली शूट होगा तब पता चलेगा कि ब्रो ऊपर का एक गवर्नमेंट का खंबा है, उस पे बैनर लगा हुआ है, वो बैनर फट गया है, हवा में झूल रहा है, कोई कुछ नहीं कर सकता. So you can, but it's your duty again. It's your duty to plan, since shooting is like war. I mean, a shoot. I mean, you going
Right.
so you got to know कौन सी जेब में क्या है, कहाँ over cover है, कहाँ नहीं. So that work is snappy. When you say कि एक second sir mic उतर गया, and I tell my guys also कि dude 30 second है तो 30 second बोल, don't do it out of that stupid habit that people
Correct,
have.
yeah.
30 seconds sir, 30 seconds. अरे what 30 seconds? If you're going to take 5 minutes, you say 5. If you're going to take 3, you say 3.
Yeah.
Because an entire set is waiting for you. You know,
Right.
you have actors there who are in the zone or not in the zone. It's not just that one star, it's everybody else who's also there. So don't be dishonest to people. So very simply put, you can recce, you can do all your preps, but it's very important to do them. You got to select what sort of mics. If you're in a damn small room, you won't be able to, your boom guy won't be able to operate the bada boom, the 18 feet. So even if fully shortened, so you need to carry a smaller boom rod, or it's a run and gun. You're going to be in the bag or out of the bag, or you can use your cart or not, or I mean, like no booms on the street, only shooting with labs. ऐसे करेंगे. So you have to figure out a plan. You can't not.
Since we are on this topic, can you give us a walkthrough of your kit?
I mean, it's been sound devices for me all the way. Start with the recorder. So I was on a 788T, ended up buying a 688 about a year and a half, 2 years ago. So 688, and I use electrosonics for my wireless. There's also my booms are CMIT 5Us usually for the exteriors, and MKH 50s for interior scenes. I've been on the COS 11. I've been trusting the COS 11Ds for the longest time, but ever since Drishyam, which was 5 years ago, I discovered the DPA and what sweetness the 4061s was.
They're actually way quieter than the COS 11s too.
Yeah. Matlab, it's complete game changer. So the 4061s is what we used on Drishyam. Now they have become the 4063s. They're a little better with dynamics, as in they can take a little the louder range. You don't clip off that easy. So DPL Labs, electrosonic wireless into shark fins. Usually they're electro shark fins also. Go into my recorder, and power is usually apna. I mean, I use NP. I have Hawkwoods powering my 688,
Mm-hmm.
and there's usually a local Jugaad battery which is powering the electros receivers. And depends. Then if a project needs extensive alternate setups, then you do your research and figure out.
And was this more like a back kind of a shoot or a card kind of a shoot?
Paatal Lok was, I'd say 50-50. Because there are situations, I mean, there's also Sanjeev Mehra's world where you are in offices and, there's peace.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's the one side of the story is a little calm. It's not just Hathiram hunting and Punjab and Chitrakoot. So 50-50.
Like you said, it wasn't decided from the beginning that you were going to be the sound designer on the show. Regardless, were there any things that you did on set keeping the design in mind?
That usually, that's usually a practice which I have always. I don't know how to think only dialogue. If a dialogue scene nahi hai, to I'd even go record car bumps and silences like I told you. And what I do is, if I'm designing or not, I usually try to have a stereo MS running along with everything else. If it's of consequence in the same room, for example, if we're shooting here, and if not, it might be in the balcony recording crows, or it might be in the kitchen recording a fridge. And parallelly then there are notes fridge on stereo mic, or train on stereo mic, or kingfisher on stereo mic. So yeah, so that's what I tend to do with my stereo mic along with the scene, unless it's too rushed and my crew is like, sir chodo na abhi. So the usual practice is to have that stereo on. You never know which film that will help you in also. The angle is, you do tell your first AD or your production that you will be recording all vehicles, all weapons, all props, everything possible, all doors. If you're doing some nice, I mean, if it's a film or if it's rural Punjab and you have nice doors happening, so then we'll do those doors, squeaks, creaks also, because it plays a huge part. It's from there. So that being said, I don't really, I don't take it as कि भाई इसका design में नहीं कर रहा हूँ, तो I can't dissociate myself completely. So this one, actually, the decision was taken midway through shoot, like a little, like 10-15 days into shoot. But it was, okay, I was discussing with Avinash and Prosit and Sudeep. I mean, we were always, okay, okay, now Hathiram's like in this zone, so, you're going to have this. And then there'll be moments where they'll be thinking, Acha, yahan to hota hai. And, there's time going by, and I'd be like, sir, sound ko bhi to time do. So Avinash will be like, correct, sir, correct, sir. So, it's also, so he's already thinking the edit, there's already that pacing happening, and, they're already calculating that, but then sometimes you got to give that bolstering. There's also going to be sound. We'll throw in that romantic train, let it pass,
Yeah.
it let you have. And this show also has a particular pace. It's not rushed, and Sayukta is like so brilliant. What to tell you? What an edit, man. That being said, yeah, so there is a thought process behind that edit also. So then to put that romantic train in there, and to bring about that correct feeling, which is what I believe the whole game is about. So my thinking is never कि भाई कौन design कर रहा है, कौन जो भी कर रहा हो. In fact, I do have then I do have discussions with the designer. So what are you looking at? Do you want to approach this differently? I'm going to go to a standard setup, or are you thinking of it? Because different people approach things differently. You could be wanting an MS constantly with the camera, or not, or managing with the boom. Because I mean, so again, you do, if you're not doing the design, you do discuss with your designer. If you are, then you take your decisions.
So one of the noteworthy things on this show was the dialogue edit and how invisible it was. The locations were pretty difficult for sync sound from the onset, and you pulled through despite that. Can you tell us a little bit about the dialogue edit? Just a quick rundown of your process, right from recording the dialogues to conforming them and matching them with the ADR.
Dialogue edit, I think it begins obviously at when you're on shoot and recording, and you gauge if your scene is quiet enough or not, or if your atmosphere is quiet enough or not. Will you be able to pull it off or not, or if the noise will be able to pass or not. The process, usually I don't like to work with OMFs because they mess with metadata. Apparently AAFs work flawlessly, and I mean, but I didn't get into it, like not into the bare bricks. But yeah, we post confirmed because of handle length. And again, the process is, again, no over cleaning ever. Just let the basic track be, and get it together, and get the dynamics in control your shoutings, and get it steady first of all, to be able to judge then what will be coming on top of that on every scene, if you can mask it or not, if you can take out, like a short film earlier I did, we completely knocked off the rain and filled in some fans and you just can't tell.
Okay.
So yeah, so that, I mean, so you gauge if you can mask your noise or not, or if you're gonna have to ADR or not. So that's when you then again don't go extreme on whatever NR you're gonna jump into, no matter how good your software is, because it's a decision you also want to take in a bigger room, in the final room where everything is together, and you then sitting with your RR engineer, you can figure out how much of what you need. So which is the opening gypsy, in fact, Boloy and Boloy we did right at the end. And yeah, dialogue isolate, my god, sorcery. So some of these plugins, are sorcery. It's like, now it's really like Jadu Tona types.
Was
Right.
that sync or was that dubbed? The opening scene. That sync?
It's sync,
Sync, sir.
100% sync.
I
Wow.
couldn't tell. So I
Yeah.
mean, either it's like brilliantly
Yeah,
mixed or brilliantly recorded or brilliantly edited. Whatever it is, it sounded brilliant.
it just
Ac-
came. Yeah, it just came into place. In fact, it's another we cleaned the gypsy and we filled it in with another gypsy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So that gypsy got so clean that we were like, "Arey, dude, what the fuck?" So we had to like, yeah. Also, yeah. Again, that reminds me, when we were shooting, as usual, there's always going to be mess ups, like I told you. So they had two gypsies coming on alternate days, and I said, okay, the second day wala gypsy ko cancel karo. Ye, matlab, it had some sort of a rattle in it. And to your luck, the next time you're shooting, the second day gypsy comes, because the first day gypsy has gone off somewhere else.
Of course.
So it's either you have the gadi to shoot or not, or like, ya to sound kar lo, ya to shoot kar lo.
Shoot kar lo.
but managed to pull through that also. So yeah, that was that. Where were we? Sorry. The dialogue edit, yes. Yeah, and once we through with your basic cleanup, that's when you leave your final decisions on the final cleanups. I would leave them for the mix, unless of course it's something very obvious, then you go ADR it, or deal with it
Right.
accordingly.
Right. Since we are on ADR, and this one's more for you, Boloy, how did you match the production sound with ADR? Was it something that happened at your end, or was it done by the dialogue editor and sent over to you?
As far as I remember, we do not have much of ADR, but yeah, like quite a lot of like small little things here and there. So also, as ADR goes, like it's always like there is no specific process I follow. Like it's just my ears and like what I feel. Like it's always about the feel of it. Like I sometimes do pitch corrections, or like it might do with a simple EQ.
Right.
Sometimes some compression is added, or some saturation needs to be added. All those processes combine, and you get to a amalgamated stuff which totally match with your production sound. So it's quite a complex process. There is no you can't have a linear pattern that I'm equalizing or compressing or saturating. It might be like saturator first, or it might be anything, any kind of process which would kind of emulate the production track in that
Okay.
given scene.
Were you dirtying up the ADR with like using something like ambience match to sort of match the production ambience?
Uh, yes, ambience match was used, but what happens? See, ambience match does not exactly match your ambience. It changes the tonality of the filling track. So
Right.
ambience match was also used, but not only ambience match. Like it's a complex process. I can't describe it. I have to maybe show it.
I'm sure it's different from, like, it varies from
Yeah,
one scene
Yeah,
to
of
another,
course,
even
of
in the
course.
same episode. Like, you might not
yeah,
use the
yeah.
same approach.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just all these years of practice, maybe.
If I may attempt to put into words what Boloy is trying to say, the complex procedure, what I also noticed, in fact, while every time I watched Paatal Lok on playback, it's not just about bluntly matching ADR to dialogue. It's also about holding on to that dialogue track steady and holding your viewer. There's also the kalakari of the cameraman in there and how they have lensed it. So you are holding your audience onto a screen and not letting go of them, and the next cut may not be the only thing deciding when we are changing an EQ or when you are ramping something. The lensing of both those shots, and that's what Boloy saying, the amalgamation of the whole thing.
Right.
No two words or no two lines of ADR anywhere will have the exact same treatment. You may have a pattern, you may have a similarity in the voice,
Right.
but how you're flowing, how loud or soft was that character, how loud or soft is this character, and how you are moving through in the mix, because even the mix moves from here to there, right?
Right.
Sometimes you want to attract attention to a nail being clicked. Sometimes you want to attract attention to a finger ring being clicked on a table or something like that, and you're on a wide shot, and then you can just hear the ring, and then you cut close to it was super close of the ring, and then so again bridging it, and that how you're going to take your audience through this perspective to that perspective and manage to hold them onto that picture is also that what I mean the kalakari is. And then again, the ADR matching is you use similar kind of mics. The 50 then goes into the studio for ADR if required, and along with the Neumann. So then depending on what's matching better, also it's very difficult to hold an artist to a 50 unless it's actually being boomed because it's so tight, it's hyper. So or then you have to restrict your artist saying, sorry sir, yeah ma'am, don't move too much, or if they need to move, then you go further back so you get a little. So it may or may not match, so it's always a stunt. But mostly what I've noticed is, yeah, you get your sur tal correct and your projection correct, and things usually fall into place, and then it's easier to tweak it a little. Again, that tweaking then maybe of a variety of options,
Right.
I mean a variety of ways.
Did you also use labs?
I prefer just going with one mic rather than complicate it. The 50 on just one track, it's way better than adding mics and complicating it, because then you have to spend time phase up matching, and the usual thing has been with Robin also कि dude अगर एक track में काम चल रहा है, so then let's not get into pushing the lab in for no reason for body and soul, because we don't need body and soul. It's already there in one track, And I mean, even for matching sakes, you get a genius like Boloy then, and one MKH50 can get matched, so it's not a problem. so, so that's the usual thing.
Pressing the topic of ADR, the one that really stood out to me was all the walkie chatter. Was that authentic chatter or something you recorded in post? Because it really didn't sound like one of those stock chatters that is normally used, and that usually has nothing to do with the scene.
No, we did some mehnat over that, yes. So I did get Sudeep sir to, so please, we need, like, it's a police station, right? So what all can happen?
Hmm.
And it's a character in the police station, because it can break the flow of things or add to it. Like when your SHO is coming barging in or not, you want it to be, or you want some live person also there which can come and go with the door. So it's again, every instant is different, but this particular walkie chatter, we did decide to have a character as an element in the police station, because it's like Jamnapar is fictitious, outer Jamnapar, but we took it as a close by centers coordinating with them and with other centers also, and they are giving reports back. So let's script. So you have some random stuff like Gadi number, falana, falana. And we did cast a genuine Haryanvi voice.
Oh.
And then Sudeep said, yeah, let's put a Haryanvi voice in there. And so we did, I mean, it was worked on, proper procedure. And we got, in our crowd dub session, we squeezed it in. Plus, we've used some other stock also, which we have from earlier. But in the greater scope of things, the main voice has been separately cast, scripted, recorded, speakerphoned, and Boloyed.
Boloid, yeah.
Boloy.
Even the scenes in the police station are tastefully done. It isn't like the standard police stations we're used to hearing in other films. This one's pretty quiet and there is more emphasis given to the dialogue, even more than the surroundings. That's something I really loved about the design. Speaking of the crowd dubs, did you end up using any of the stuff you recorded on set? Like, for example, the scene on the bridge?
The bridge scene, the bridge
Oh.
scene, we find, I mean, this again is a major issue because that bridge for the longest time could not get found. And finally, in the middle of everything, they found a bridge which happened to be in Ahmedabad where people speak Gujarati.
Oh.
So we have managed to pull off a bridge in Gujarat for a bridge in Delhi and then filled it with chatter. So all I was, and luckily I'm from Ahmedabad. And I don't know, I kind of have this thing with languages. So you kind of get the basics, no? Shanta basa, gabbasa, bolunaka,
Right.
so like that much of Marathi I've picked because I kind of also know some Konkani. And if you're in shooting in Punjab, it will be like, by you, Punjab is easy.
Yeah.
But you try to connect to the local by getting their dialect so that they know what you're saying and they kind of listen to you. So even here I had an advantage of Gujarat, so of Gujarati. And suddenly in the middle of shoot, I burst out in Gujarati instructing all the juniors because they were obviously shitting around the place. And I got irritated and I gave them a dose in Gujarati and everybody looking at me like, "Arey, ye aadmi Gujarati mein bol leta hai." So I was like, "Dude, kaam nikal raha hai," because they were not shutting up and they were just doing some bad acting. So I had to tell them in Gujarati, guys, don't come across as idiots. We're trying to shoot something sensible here. So just kind of, I'm just giving them a little instruction so that they'd get the scene. And so, in fact, that scene, all that there is from production sound is the sound of their shuffling, which was irritating because it was on dialogue also. But anyways, at that point of time, when you're trying to can a scene and your crowd is behaving like idiots, the footsteps are the last thing on your mind, right?
Right.
So that one realizes in post. But then we did fill in with, like, the bridge scene, we filled it in with a variety and we did think through. I mean, there's been quite a bit of thought process gone in here. In fact, even the police station you mentioned, we approached it. I mean, we thought of it only that way. It's outer Jamuna Par. It's the back of beyond. There is nobody who comes or goes there. So we have taken as a place, as a space. We took it as back of beyond basically. वहाँ एक highway जाता है और कुछ नहीं है. सिर्फ इस दिन को बड़ा हल्ला हुआ था तो बहुत जर्नलिस्ट का जत्था आया था. Otherwise, on an average day, it's mundane. There's nothing happening. Which I'm happy has come through.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the elements also, be it typing, be it that same boring fan, be it whatever, be it the clock. So there are things that, depending on, again, how your artist is feeling, thinking, where your story is going, XYZ will come in or not. So if those TVs are on in the police station, we have chosen to keep them all off, because then that's another whole angle of disturbance.
Right.
So playback is on visually, but they've chosen to keep it on mute. There have been a variety of things have been thought about, and there's telemetry in the police station. So even with the quieter moments, there's some beep, beep, and that also we've kept it really soft. So we did some decent amount of casting in with our crowd manager. We had specific instructions that, bhai, we are not looking at stupid crappy crowd. We want genuine Delhi voices, and also get us like energetic young people who can throw in a thing or two. So if your camera is moving from car to car, so we've also kept like, ye gaadi mein koi XYZ hai, ya to ro raha hai, ya to nahi ro raha hai. So then the crowd the ADR sessions for the crowd have been pretty intensive, in the sense they were also like, kya kar rahe ho, bore mar rahe hai, because we did all 9 episodes in one day.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Actually, there was not that much of crowd ADR. Most of it was production track, like mostly.
But like this bridge thing in particular was a Gujarati crowd, so we can't have them say anything, But you got to add that excitement. So there's stuff in the cars, there's journalists and people running, and somebody is screaming, "Arey bhanchod gaadi, nayi gaadi hai, dent pad jayega." That one line was on set, which was scripted. But similarly, there's other stuff like bhag raha, arey bhanchod kahan phek raha, So that's, again, all of it is, most of it was, a lot of the accident was spotted.
A lot of spots, yeah.
And they did a fantastic job, and I think collectively then Robin and Boloy.
Another scene that stands out is the one in the Mela, where Hathiram is injured and walks through the fair. Can you tell us a little bit about that scene and how did you put that one together?
You should look at that track before and after sound, the Mela chunk. And when you're shooting, you're telling everybody, guys, shut up, we're trying to shoot here, because I'm trying to record Hathiram, and Hathiram he's limping on and he's breathing and all that.
Right.
And you're telling people to mime. So out there it's mimed. And then once you come to post, you should actually check with Gaurav Singh. In fact, he was calling. Gaurav Singh is my other right-hand man. He's also from the institute and he's been assisting me. He's been with me since Super 30.
Oh, nice.
So this one, I pulled him on for design also. So that whole Mela thing, I remember, since it's the 9th episode. And we were working on like the 3rd or 4th by then, and there's multiple pressures from everywhere. So all I had told him was, dude, just look at the frame and fill the fuck out of it. Okay, we'll do this later. And think of it as space to space to. So he's gone from here to there. So what else can you add? Add a speaker here, add another speaker there. So there's one place where the whole Narsim Avatar play is happening. There's another space is where the bike thing is happening. The entry is one space. The accident spot, he starts hearing trickles of that distant speaker, and he kind of figures, So it's been built like, and all salams to Gaurav on the Mela, because that like you said is quite exemplary. I really liked how it's come out at the end of it all. But you should watch it without. You should watch that. That one's like before after dekhna chahiye. वो वाला काफी पागल है.
Speaking of building spaces, How each location is designed keeping the characters in mind is very subtle. For example, Outer Jamna Par, which is in the back of Beyond, where nothing exciting really happens, draws a parallel to Hathiram's life. And one another place that signifies the same is Hathiram's apartment complex. The design and mix of these scenes is very dignified and doesn't intrude or overpower the dialogue or visual atmosphere. Can you tell us what drove that choice creatively?
How the house in particular, acha, now that I mean, you reminded me of a fact on this project also. What I did, I mean, what I thought about, since my that usual procedure of running the stereo along
Hmm.
with every scene, and if it's not of consequence in here, then you run it out and catch whatever else you're getting for free,
Right.
while you're shooting it and while everybody else is quiet. Obviously not, you don't want to face it to the generator, but if you have a train station or a flight path or whatever, you just think about it.
Yeah.
On this one, what I figured is, okay, when now the thing is, you're shooting in Delhi, right? So if you're shooting in one space, I if you're in a train station under the chapra,
Hmm. Hmm.
I'd send off my assistant, like I'd tell him, dude, tu chala ja, 200 meter chala ja dur. So that poor guy actually ended up having an ID crisis after like a week or something. He's like, sir, you don't want me around or something? Like, what am I not being able to? Like, I'm not feeling. I'm like, dude, chill, chill. You don't know what you're doing. And so yeah, so similarly, so those recordings are also there. It's at least the same space at the same point of time, because I mean, I think of things in time and space. Basically, when you're shooting in a Chitrakoot, for example, that Chitrakoot no longer stays virgin and innocent to itself, because it now knows that somebody is shooting.
Right.
And when a barrage of 150 people reach there for a shoot, वहाँ का कुत्ता कुत्ता बच्चा बच्चा जानता है कि भाई यहाँ shooting चालू है.
Right.
So that space is no longer what it actually is.
Hmm. Hmm.
So ideally, if you ask me, I'd take a recorder onto recce's also, plus on shoot also. Then, if required, later you go for another trip if you have not gotten the juice of what you need.
Okay.
So because while you're shooting, you're doing some ambience in some lane, suddenly some kid will see you and hey, silence, then scream from far away. I mean, in all innocence, he's having his fun.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
come on, you don't want that on your track. In fact, the dogs also won't bark; they may be shit scared.
Correct.
Right.
So you won't get wahan ka kutta, wahan ka billi, and you'll scare the birds away, and the whole flora fauna, the entire space changes because a unit of 200 is shooting in your city. आज ये location कर लो. So what I tend to do is send this assistant back to that मोटा market के चल आज हम पास में हैं, तू वहाँ चला जा, वो खींच के ला. And basically perspectives of your actor, of your artists, of your talent, of film. If you need extra recordings of random crowds passing, ऐसी दुकान पे जाके, what I tend to do is, you get these cloth bags. So even if it is an H6 or a D100, in a cloth bag with no LEDs blinking, otherwise you'll get beaten up. So you correctly hide your LEDs blinking, and if it's this, for example, then it ends up looking like, okay, this is a cloth bag. So it ends up being this, and you're just standing anywhere with it under your arm, and so nobody is going to bother. And again, nobody will change, or nothing will really change, because you're not looking suspicious. Sometimes what I do is I'll be looking and pointing the 60-30 a particular way, but it's actually flipped around. I am recording the guy behind me, because it's a shop where there's some sort of a conversation happening, between shopkeeper and some haggling or whatever. So I mean, you got to use your brains and use the best possible gear, but again, depends on what you want and what you need. So we've ended up getting some really good recordings on this one, of a variety of things. That's what ends up helping. Then, in fact, the colony, which is where this started, what I told him was to just go and record houses, activity, children, because again, time changes. So morning, evening, afternoon, night, you'll have a ganti sometimes not, sometimes pressure cooker, sometimes this, sometimes that, sometimes dog. So it's anything can happen. So, and we were in a genuine Delhi colony, which did have those sort of mundane sounds, which sometimes it's sorry, that cooker we put in post, the milk cooker. But yeah, you do have the usual sweeping rounds in the morning. And one very interesting thing I would like to mention, we wanted to use, we didn't get permissions for the Swachh Bharat, the Delhi trucks. When the trucks come in, they usually play that thing. Yeah, we didn't have the rights for a lot of them, so we pretty much couldn't use much. One thing throughout this whole process has been to let things evolve, which is something I've picked up from Avinash on shoot. Like that bridge scene, I'd come in with my 2 bits and give him one piece of my mind कि भाई मैं क्या सोच रहा हूँ, because I don't stop myself from that. Especially him and me, I mean, I can go give him an idea whenever. Obviously, gauging if he's busy thinking of something or not, but you got to like pick your moments. So even on the bridge, you go with your 2 bits. So what he'd be like, "Ki, Suzy, ruk jana, hone de pehle." So let things happen. Let whoever has come in, they do their parts, and then we add our 2 bits to it. So I'm like, okay, so that's been the approach. That Basti also evolved very gradually. I mean, again, a thought about it, what sort of a place it is. It's in the back of Beyond in Delhi, so there's going to be a variety of humans from all across the planet, but obviously a little more. You'll have your migrant population, and you'll have people from the south also, and so we've thrown in one birha in the distance on a speaker, and plus as you approaching, you can hear water trickle, and then you getting into the slum, you start hearing people, mother, child, and then you pass by one house. Now hunting for those things was another crazy experience. So I did go through a lot of Bhojpuri films. I have plenty of them I've ripped off, but of course,
Especially the use of that gunshot, no, like as they're crossing by the dishkyow, and then cut to the shot of that woman beating her husband.
correct, because there, what Hathiram is asking him again, if you notice, is kitne saal ho gaye bhai tere ko dishkyow. So it's
Yeah.
also, that sublime play is also a lot of fun.
Yeah.
In fact, getting those sounds out, I was sitting and ripping them off, watching stuff, and then again, you can't use anything that's obviously identifiable, right?
Correct.
Right.
So my fallback was the good old standard stock music. So that's what has basically. Then I just used chunks, and it came about very well. And when stuff has to happen, no, it just flows nicely, man. So there have been times where Gaurav and me sitting in the room. I mean, I'll just be sitting on a chunk, and when it happens, it's that 5-10 minutes which that scene you hit it out of the park. But for that 5-10 minutes to come, it may take you 4-5 days.
So this next question is for both of you. What were your interactions with both the directors like? Because having more than one director on a project means having a bigger melting pot of ideas, suggestions, and opinions. How did you make sure that you achieved all your goals while staying true to the sensibilities of both the directors?
Basically, like I told you, we were having our discussions on set itself, and so Avinash and Prosit were being spoken to on set. Plus, Sudeep sir was also there all the time. Sudeep Sharma, who's our showrunner. The process I followed is basically I'd call them in for a sitting after you do a basic pass. So that I don't, मतलब मेरी गाड़ी और 100 किलोमीटर आगे पहुंच जाए, आप बोलो अरे नहीं भाई ये रास्ता था ही नहीं.
Right.
Correct.
So I'd rather just flag you off, so so they came in, we did have sittings depending on whoever is free, who not. So say on episode 1 we sat on the average we've sat about twice before mix.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'd sit once, and no, actually the second sitting was almost mix, no, Boloy?
Mix, yeah. Second
Sometimes no, they did come at least once before to check at least,
Huh,
because I'd rather that we check content wise everything is in place,
is in place, yeah.
that be it a TV or a train or a gunshot or a skull smash, at least content wise everything is there. Then we'll take it into the mix, and whatever up down is needed, that again if they had their problems, train thoda loud aaye, that's a mixed thing, don't worry, ye ho jayega. At least edit wise you have all your everything in place. Then again, once we were through with a little bit of the mix, at least like 20-30 minutes of the episode, then we'd call them in saying, boss, we've done only so much, if you guys want to come, well and good, at least to get the zone of where it is.
Yeah.
And then they trust us to pull it through, and then we'd call them in at the end for a final viewing before we gave it out. And Boloy will tell you about our interactions and how sweet they all were. And very, very lovely people, man. Fantastic team to work with. Zero tension, no hang-ups.
Yeah. First of all, because they were so good, sensible, calm people to work with. Like it was always fun. Like although I was under tremendous pressure to deliver every episode within 6 to 7 days. Like that was a lot of pressure for me. But still, we managed to pull off a lot of things together. Speaking about all the previews, we were all on the same page, and it was quite interesting process for me going through the whole thing, and understanding the visuals and getting everything into the zone of the thing. Everything was evolving, the sound was very progressive that way.
That's actually quite a blessing to have, directors like that who.
Yeah, also more heads, so you got more people to deal with, might just end up working against you.
Yeah.
But that luckily was not the case in this one, because anyway, see, they had their heads in the right place because they had been discussing it, and they also chose to shoot it. No, it's not like one person.
Right.
They knew there were 3 people
Right.
doing one person's
Right.
job. And it's not one person's job, because like we discussed, it's 4.5 hours of
Right.
content. So you
Yeah.
have one person who's overseeing everything, which is your showrunner. And then you have your directors who bring whatever they bring to the table. So and in a way all of them being pleased about something is all the more bolstering to the fact कि हाँ नहीं अच्छा है, तीन लोग बोल रहे हैं अच्छा है तो अच्छा ही होगा. And then again, that's where your honesty plays. You're honest with each other. There is no bullshit happening.
Right. Right.
You're not like saying one thing and doing another thing. And that feeling that you are talking about is correct. We've been since shoot. We've been saying that feeling correct, correct. So that has been one thing that's been quite constant.
Yeah, I think that's also like one of the key factors of success of such a soundtrack where everything is just working. Talking about the soundtrack, I think coming to the mixing part of it, we've noticed that the music is really well done, but nowhere it has overpowered the dialogue
Yeah.
or the design, and nowhere the design has also overpowered the music. It's been at the right levels, or it's just been very tastefully done. So, Bolay, what was your process in terms of the music department also? Like, what was their contribution to it? And I know that, I mean, it's no secret that a lot of times on the mix stage, there's always like this cold war happening between the music department, the sound designer, and the re-recording mixer, and everyone.
It's not cold. Sometimes it's like a blunt fight.
It was quite pleasant this time. Like all of us were on the same page. We had already pre-decided where we would like go intense on the design, where we would keep space for music, like where we would let the characters breathe their own spaces. Everything was predefined and well thought of. So it was a very thoughtful and a tastefully done mix. It was really challenging because this was a very different kind of a narrative to work on. I was actually parallelly working on 2 horror films and 1 dance film when I started Paatal Lok. So like
Wow.
4 things going on parallelly. So the initial days were quite difficult for me. So around December, I was almost done with the other projects. So I could like fully focus on this, and like that is why it started evolving, like full focus. Almost 3.5 months spent on the mix.
Actually, the thing is, ever since the edit, that whole space and timing and that pacing and everything has been carefully thought about.
Right.
Like not just the edit, since the script.
Yeah.
It's literally like that stay on this thing has been written.
Right.
And then Jadip also doesn't disappoint, and he'll also give you some sort of a reaction or something. I don't look at it as BGM, and it's not like it's all one composition. It's not an edit or a shot or visual. So that coming together of, and again, each of us think that way. So neither is the BGM. And we had initial discussions with there was a back forth of the effects with Naren and Benedict. So they kind of get and it's always good. So I always make it a point if your music composers need, then you prefer to send them cleaned up sound and at least some scape of where your effects are heading, just as you've called your directors in.
Yeah.
So Naren and Bennett also they needed this. I needed where the music was going. So you do have that back and forth happening between departments, so that it's not a fight at the end of it all. And again, it all needs to flow together. And boy, they've done a fantastically brilliant job with whatever they've done.
Yes.
So that, and then again blending it with whatever we guys had done, Jitin, me, and Robin, and Gaurav and Boloy. And so then it was like for Boloy to put it all together. And like he said, it's again you're trying to not lose your audience. So there's so much happening that those decisions of what, when, how much fight hai nahi hai, wo आराम से अपने आप ही it came together.
No, definitely, and I think that's what makes it a successful soundtrack and not just like a assembly of sound.
Yeah, it's not just like
Yeah. Talking about mixing and sort of more towards the technical side, Boloy.
Yeah.
So you mixed this in 5.1, right?
Right.
But this predominantly is going to be on OTT, where a lot of people are going to consume it in stereo.
Right.
So how was your process of mixing in 5.1 and making sure that even your stereo down mixes were sounding good, and how did you manage going back and forth?
See, initially the motto was to make the spaces right in an immersive environment. So once the spaces were made right, then it was like all multiple passes. Once going through the entire dialogue track, like sorting it out, having it right there where you want it to be, then filling it with the ambiences, all the design elements coming together. Then again, like there you set your spaces. If everything is right or in the right proportions, then you fill in your music. Then I used to take a pass monitoring everything in stereo also while mixing. I would mix in multiple passes so that neither of the audiences, be the immersive audiences or the people who are going to watch it on their headphones, or like nobody misses out the fun of the whole soundtrack. So that was also being taken care of. We made sure that we don't miss out anything for anybody. Like both the audiences are catered to.
Vinit, did you do the sound edit in stereo, or was your sound setup also like you did it in 5.1 and then?
As in, we started off in stereo, dialogue obviously center, but eventually both dialogue and effects go into 5.1 because you can't leave all of that for the mix. No, I'd prefer not having my mix engineer to my re-recording engineer to have to touch the edit ever, because it shouldn't need to, unless if required. If it's adding to it, all yours. I am totally open to suggestions, but I'd prefer not, that he has the time completely to focus on the mix, that he doesn't have to say कि यार ये typing है नहीं है. But there obviously there have been instances that चलो ये आने वाला है या वो आने वाला है.
No,
Yeah,
we were both on
but
it
yeah.
all the time. Yeah. And sometimes we give up a lot of things which we both like. Ki, nahi, we like this
Yeah,
thing, but we don't want
too
it
nice.
yet. It was all evolving. Yeah.
Working on any project whose final resting place is going to be on an OTT platform comes with certain boundaries with respect to its levels and dynamics. What's your take on this, Boloy? And how do you take a powerful and effective design, blend that with music, and make sure it sounds balanced and immersive to the audience?
See, for me, what happens is while doing a theatrical mix, SPL levels are quite higher than what we are on headphones, right?
Yeah.
For me, noise has been easier to handle on web shows and OTT content than on theatrical releases, because in theaters what happens is thoda sa bhi noise hai, then you start feeling there is noise. But there in OTT and all, and luckily in Paatal Lok we did not have to bother much about noise because we knew it was Delhi. We like certain locations which are shown as noisy have to be noisy. We did not have to clean up too much of it. So noise was played and used around in the whole soundscape. On the same page, like dynamics for me is completely, it's a very different story. Like I don't go loud to be dynamic. I go dynamic. Like if I have to create a silence, I make sure I have a loud portion and there is a sudden silence. Then if you want to go loud, silence, then a sudden loud portion.
Correct.
But that loudness is not that loud that
In your face, yeah.
blow your
And
ears off.
it is energy coming at you,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
from the speakers. Like that's why a loud mix hurts,
Yeah,
because it is fucking loud, and it's not. It's like it is killing you.
Yeah,
Sooner
yeah,
or
yeah.
later, it will.
And like a lot of people had managed to binge watch the entire series in
yeah.
one night, the day it released. That was only
Tired.
because they were not
Yeah, it wasn't fatigued.
yeah. Nobody had a fatigue at all. See, that is also always the directors, always the sound designers or the music people. Like if they don't want things to be loud, I don't push things too hard myself. If somebody wants it loud, then you can't help it.
Right.
So
Yeah, and also
Yeah.
like from a dynamic standpoint, like if you have everything loud all the
Right.
time,
doesn't make
then
sense.
the things which are supposed to be actually loud, there is no differentiation between the two.
There's no differentiation. Yeah.
So I guess that's a good note to end our conversation on the sound of Paatal Lok. Thank you so much, Vinit and Boloy, for lending your time and sharing your experiences on this amazing show. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting you guys. As always, I hope to speak with you soon on a new project.
Thank you guys so much.
Yes, thank you guys.
To all my listeners who plugged in, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode. It'd be great to have your thoughts on it and drop in your suggestions and recommendations on what you want us to talk about in the following episodes. Do get in touch with us on Facebook and Instagram at Sync and Post. Please follow us, share our work, and subscribe if you dig this podcast. Last but not the least, a loud shout out to everyone who helped piece this humble little episode together. Playhead Studios in Andheri West, where we recorded it. The title track was composed by another dear friend of mine, Gaurang Soni, while Karthik here did the sound design on it. Show them some love and follow them on Instagram at karthik.kulkarni and at Gaurang Soni 3. Until next time, bye.